What's going on, everyone? I thought I'd just do another video, considering it's just been oyster season, and the new oyster allowance started on the 6th of April of the new tax year in the UK. I thought I'd go through what type of oyster I'm going to get in 2021, and the 5 types of oyster in the UK explained, and generally quite a bit of oyster information in this video. I'm going to try and get through it as fast as I can. I'm not a financial advisor. These videos are just for educational and informative information to inspire people to invest and understand what options are available to them in the UK for investing and saving. Could I just ask you all if you could subscribe to the channel, help the channel grow, and give this video a like if you've enjoyed the content. I'm going to try and get through this video quite quickly. I don't really want to be beating around the bush about it. So let's get straight into it then. Well, first, a brief outline of oysters. Oysters are a way to save and invest tax-free. So it's like a wrapper. It's not an investment in itself. Everything you put into an individual savings account, its growth and its dividend income, and any other capital gains from the assets and the investments inside the oyster are tax-free. Your oyster allowance for 2020 and 2021 is going to be £20,000, which is quite a generous allowance. It's one of the best in the world, to be fair. £20,000 that you can put into an account every year, and it can grow tax-free is amazing. You have until the 5th of April to use part or all of your oyster allowance, so that you have from the 6th of April in 2021 till the 5th of April in 2022 to use all your allowance. And if you don't use it, you lose it. You can place your oyster allowance into 4 different types of oyster, providing you do not exceed the £20,000 limit. So all the different oysters you've got, you can place them into, so say if you've got 4 different types of oyster, you can put £2,000 in a cash oyster, £4,000 in a lifetime oyster, and then £4,000 in an innovative oyster, and then £10,000 in a stocks and shares oyster, and that will fill up your £20,000 oyster allowance. You can only open and contribute into 1 of each per year, so you can't open 2 stocks and shares oysters every year. You can only open 1, and you can only contribute into 1 stocks and shares oyster. And same with the cash, same with the innovative oyster, and same with the lifetime oyster. You can open all 5 different coins, but you can only contribute into 1 of each per year. So you bear that in mind. You can't open a stocks and shares with Hargreaves Lansdown and free trade. Now we're just going to go through each individual savings accounts and the different types. The first one is the cash oyster. This is the pretty much basic one. Not many people like to use them at the moment, because there's £1,000 personal capital gains tax allowance, and savings accounts, unless you've got mega money in a savings account with the interest rates currently, you're not going to have to pay tax on your interest on your savings. So not many people like the cash oyster at the moment, but I'll go through it anyway. The tax advantages are it's a free savings account, must be open, but you must be 16 or over to open one. Normally offers lower returns than other types of oyster. I've just said that obviously the interest rates are really low at the moment. There are a variety of different oyster options, such as easy access, regular saver, or fixed term. So you can have one where you can put the money in and take it out whenever you need it. But bear in mind, if you take the money out and put it back in, that still contributes to more of your allowance being used up. A regular saver where you can probably just set and forget. So you could probably set it to £100, £25 direct debit to go straight into the oyster every month, or a fixed term, which this is like a locks off one really. So you'll be putting your money in for a fixed term, say 1, 2, 1, 3 or 5 years, and it will be a fixed rate of interest. Now, I personally wouldn't do this, because we never know what's going to happen with interest rates. They could go up, they could go down. And if you're looking to lock your money away for more than 3 to 5 years, then you really shouldn't be looking at fixing your money in a low-paying interest account. So that's basically the cash oyster. You can use 20,000. You can put your whole £20,000 in the cash oyster if you wanted to. A stocks and shares oyster. This is the one I mainly use, and this is for it's an investment ISA really, and it's an also known as an investment ISA, and you've got to be over 18 for this. Now the good thing is with cash ISA is obviously you lose your allowance if you don't use it. So if you're 16 and you can start saving into cash ISA, and then when you're 18 you can convert it over to a stocks and shares ISA without losing those 2 years of the allowance. Not that many 16-year-olds can fill up a £20,000 ISA allowance unless they're like tech geniuses that have just created the next crazy app or something like that. Not many. I don't know many 16-year-olds that can afford to put £20,000 away every year. Offers the potential to gain higher returns. Obviously, in the stock market over the long term, it's historically been better returns than savings and bonds. Typically seen as a higher risk alternative to a cash ISA. Well, it's risk reward. So the more risk you take, the more reward you'll get. But if you take a sensible investing approach over the long term, I personally think, in my opinion, that you're going to have a good rate of return over the long term. You can invest in stocks, bonds, funds, and ETFs with a tax-free wrapper. So you have got a wide range of investments that you can put your investments in. There's plenty of platforms in the UK that offer stocks and shares. Also, there's Hargreaves Lansdown, AJ Bell, Interactive Investor, Free Trade, Trading 212, all sorts of platforms where Moneybox offers a stocks and shares ISA. That's where you rounds off your change and invests the money for you. It saves the money and then invests it into a fund for you. It's good for starters, money boxes. So that's the stocks and shares ISA, and you can put £20,000 a year into your stocks and shares ISA. If you wanted to put your whole allowance, you can put it into the stocks and shares, which is £20,000 a year. Then moving on to the individual ISA. Now I'm not too keen on this one, but we'll go through it anyway because it's part of it. It was introduced in April 2016, and you must be 18 or over. It allows you to participate in peer-to-peer lending, which is, say you put £2,000 into your ISA account, and then whichever platform you do it through, they will borrow the money out to somebody that needs a short-term loan, and they will spread it between a few different loans. And then obviously, when that person pays you back, that's your rate of return. That's your fixed, your interest earned on top of it. It's money lent to borrowers in return for a fixed rate of interest, basically. Typically regarded as higher risk than cash ISA, with the potential for higher returns. I personally think it's a higher risk than stocks and shares ISA, and I don't think the returns over the long term would be as good, because I think it's like 6 to 8%. And with this, the more risk you take, the more reward you get. Really is true to this. Whereas I think you can, with stocks and shares, if you do it properly and you do your due diligence, you can take less risk for higher returns. But with this, when you're looking for 13% returns, it's normally on higher risk borrowers. So I'm not really into this. Some people like this to diversify their investments, but I don't see it as an investment. You just turn yourself into a bank, really, aren't you? And that's not investing. That's just loan sharking. So I'm not really that keen on this. And there are a few more guidelines that the government's put in over this sort of investment, because it can be quite misleading for people, and I think it's just treat it like a savings account. They don't really understand what they're getting into. To move on, the lifetime ISA is an individual savings account. Now, I'll just put it out there, you can get these in cash, but they're more common in stocks and shares. So you can open a stocks and shares, and you can open a lifetime ISA. And so if you wanted to invest your £20,000, which not many of us can, you could invest £4,000 into the lifetime ISA and £16,000 into your stocks and shares ISA. Now, I personally would fill up my lifetime ISA first. That'd be my main protocol, filling that up, and I'll go through why throughout this slide now. And then I'd try and get as much in my stocks and shares ISA as I can afterwards. So let's just go through the lifetime ISA. You can save or invest up to £4,000 per year towards a first house or retirement, or both. Allowances inclusive the £20,000 ISA allowance, as I just said. Receive 25% bonus until the age of 50. So every £4 you deposit into this ISA, you get a government bonus of £1 top up. So if you invest your £4,000, you get a £1,000 top up. That's why I suggest you invest in the lifetime ISA first. You receive a 20. If you use this to purchase your first home, it must be no more than £450,000. But if I'm looking to buy my first home, it's going to be a lot less than £450,000 anyway. So I'm quite happy. You know, with that being the limit. Withdrawals before the age of 60 or anything then other than buying your first house incur a 25% penalty. So this is the thing. You don't put money in this. I wouldn't put your £4,000 in here straight up at the start of the year, because you don't know, you might need some money. I know you should have an emergency fund, but you know, you'd never know what's going to happen. So I would put £300 a month in and spread it out over the year, because you don't know, you might need the money before then. Because what happens is, with the 25% penalty, all right, you're getting a 25% government bonus, but you actually lose out, because you're losing 25% on the 5,000 rather than you're only getting 25% on the 4,000, which is £1,000, but they actually incur a penalty of 25% on the 5,000 as a whole, and you'd actually be having £1,250 penalty, which is £250 more than the bonus that you've received over the course of the year. It's only available to 18 to 39-year-olds. So if you're under 39, and preferably, this isn't advice, but in my opinion, if you're not in the high tax bracket, this is probably a better option than a pension, because all your gains are tax free, and you get the government bonus, which is similar to a tax relief. So that's worth looking at if you're looking at a pension and you're under the age of 30 and you're a low income tax bracket. Let's move on to the next one now. The final one is the junior ISA. You can save or invest up to £9,000 per year for your child in this. This is a great allowance for a child, especially because they've got like a 60, 70 year time horizon on their investments. So you don't even have to be clever with your investments. You can just whack it into index funds, and you know, over the long term they're going to do well. Money is locked away until the child is 18. It can be converted to an adult ISA when the child reaches 18. So you can build it up, build a nice sizable pot, and then transfer it to an adult ISA when they turn 18. So they keep that valuable ISA wrapper around their investments and the tax-free growth within it. Children aged between 16 and 17 can hold both junior ISA and an adult cash ISA. But, you know, if you're not going to be putting £29,000 a year, or not many people are going to be putting £29,000 away a year for their 16, 17-year-old children. A parent or a guardian can open a GISA for a child, however, anyone can pay into it. So I've opened one for my daughter, but grandparents, friends, relatives, they can just, you can give them the detail and they can pay into it. They can't do anything else, but they can just make a deposit into the account for you. Parent, you cannot access the money once deposited. It's not part of your overall £20,000 tax allowance or ISA allowance. So that's good. And it's also good to get your children involved in the investment part of it, so they understand and they see their money grow over time. And it will probably encourage them to save more when they get to 18 and convert it into an adult ISA, and not touch their investments too much. I hope you've all enjoyed this video. I've tried to get through it quite quickly. If you could all drop your thoughts in the comments section, what you think about the ISAs, what your preferences are. I'm preferably going to go with the lifetime ISA, try and fill it up, and then get as much of my stocks and shares ISA over the course of 2021. But if you could just drop your thoughts and let me know what kind of ISAs you're using, and how you're using your allowance this year. I would just ask you all to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and have a nice day.